Welcome to Tabletop Assault. I'm Ross, and today I'm going to continue my segments on the review of the Chaos Space Marine Codex. Today I'm going to cover Stratagems, Artefacts and Warlord Traits. Just before I begin this video, I want to say a big thank you to all the people who sort of commented on social media as I was in hospital yesterday, just getting a bit of an operation. I'm back up and going, and I just want to say thanks for that, guys. It was really nice. So let's begin with stratagems. Now, obviously stratagems we are now seeing are a huge advantage, and when we were first presented with stratagems there was only a couple you could choose from that were for the general armies. Now we're getting a huge variety of them, which is now really building each army's individual sort of play style. So certainly getting armies early on at the moment is proving to be really good, because you've now got a whole bunch of options for your command points. In this segment I'm going to talk about a few stratagems in particular, just like the key ones I think you can use, and certainly the ones that will be more beneficial in my playstyle. Now you may think, Ross, why do you not cover all the stratagems? Well, for Chaos I think there is 24 of them, and I'm going into them in a wee bit of detail, so if you wanted me to cover all of them, it'd be a video in itself just for stratagems. And this one's going to be long enough as is. If you do think that might be better and you prefer in the future I just discuss stratagems in a separate video rather than trying to get them all into one video along with Artefacts and Warlord Traits, let me know. But I'm going to only speak about a few key ones at the moment. So let's go into them. So the first one I'm going to talk about is Blasphemous Machines. Use as stratagem just before Heretic Astares vehicle attacks in the shooting phase. Until the end of the phase, the vehicle can ignore the penalties for moving and firing heavy weapons, or for advancing and firing assault weapons. The cost is 1 command points. So this ability is fairly useful in Chaos lists because we've got a lot of mobile vehicles such as demon engines, walkers, etc., who like to obviously not just sit back in the back line all the time and fire. They can be quite mobile by moving forward as well. So just getting that option to be mobile, especially with a defiler, to fire the bow cannon and keep moving without any penalties is really good. Now I was thinking between this and Linebreaker Bombardment, Killshot, and Demon Forge. Why choose Blasphemous Machines over these ones to speak about? It's mainly because things like Linebreaker Bombardment and Killshot, which are very restrictive of you must have either, I think, 3 Demolishers or 3 Predators. Your opponent, he or she will be able to tell instantly, okay, he's going to, you're going to spend command points to try and activate that ability, and if they've got first turn, they will probably try and counteract it to make sure you don't get the full benefit of that stratagem. So I feel Blasphemous Machines is quite a good one because it is not requiring your sort of army to be tailored around it. You can sort of just add it into any vehicle when it's at a key moment of which it needs to do quite a bit of damage. So that general use puts it above the other ones for a bit of an advantage in that one. Next one is going to be Fire Frenzy. Use this stratagem in your shooting phase just before a Hellbrute shoots. If that Hellbrute did not move in its movement phase, it can fire all of its weapons twice, but all its attacks must target the nearest visible unit. Command point cost 1. Okay, there's a couple of prerequisites that may make this slightly unappealing for some people. First thing is that you can't move, so you can't, sort of move towards your enemy's battle lines, which, depending on how you've kitted out your Hellbrute, might be a bad thing. But it's the next part that makes that a disadvantage, where you must also target the closest visible unit. So you can't, move yourself into position to go, well, the visible unit is that one. You've literally got to prepare more or less a turn in advance. However, I've felt the pain of this stratagem before, where a Hellbrute fired 4 last cannon shots and it was just painful. Add missile launchers on it as well, and it's just a lot of pain for 1 command point. Hellbrutes also don't deteriorate if they get wounded, so even if it's at 1 wound, for 1 command point you can just suddenly rush out a whole bunch of shots, which is really handy. So on Hellbrutes with quite a lot of firepower on them, for 1 command point, I think this is absolutely worth it. and if you've just got them running about, great, definitely go for it. 1 command point, if you've got 4 last cannon shots and missiles, definitely go for that one. Plus I love Hellbrutes, I think they're amazing, really cool. Veterans of the Long War. Use this stratagem when a Heretic Astaris infantry or biker unit is selected to attack in the shooting or fight phase, excluding units from the Renegade chapters. Very cool. You can add 1 to all wound rolls made for the unit until the end of the phase. Command point cost 1. So just say why Renegade chapters can't use this is that it's because of the name in Veterans of the Long War. Basically going for people, it's basically the name of the title is that it has to be a legion that is, been fighting for a very, very long time. Love that. I think that's quite fluffy, quite cool. Renegade chapters is got great legion traits. That's a real shame for them that they can't use this one. So this can be a particularly nasty stratagem, especially in instances where you'll be throwing a lot of dice to wound, because obviously adding 1 to your wound rolls is fantastic. An example would be a unit filled with flamers, such as Chosen, or more dangerously, and I've experienced this very recently, is Rubric Marines armed with Warp Flamers with a -2 AP can really destroy anything they get within range. I mean, adding +1 to the wound roll, I mean, most things as targeting troops are going to need 4s, but becoming 3s, -2 AP, absolutely nuts. Yeah, so if you are going to be rocking a 1000 Sun unit with flamers, keep this in mind for 1 command point, definitely. However, even on high damage weapons such as last cannons, multi-melters or missile launchers, this is also really good as well, just to sort of tick over. If you're not quite wounding on 2s yet, then this can tick you over into there and just maybe guarantee that you're going to get high damage amounts, especially if you're firing at enemy vehicles where maybe you need 3s to wound. Becoming 2s to wound and you've got maybe 4 last cannon shots just can really guarantee that sort of vehicle is going to be suffering quite a bit of damage. In the fight phase though, this can be absolutely devastating with Khorne Berserkers, who I'm 90% sure they'll gain the advantage in both the times they fight, because you gain this ability in the fight phase, they fight twice in the fight phase. Pretty sure the amount of dice they can chuck out, wherever they're touching, with next to also adding Veterans of the Long War, is going to almost practically guarantee Khorne Berserkers are going to annihilate them. So yeah, really like this ability. 2 units I'd recommend, Khorne Berserkers and 1000 Suns with their flamers, but you can use it on just about anything, any moment where you see you're going to be rolling a lot of wound dice just to tip it over the edge, or if you're going to use high profile shots such as last cannons or melter guns. Really, really good for 1 command point, awesome. Tide of Traitors. Use a stratagem at the end of your movement phase. If you do, pick a unit of Chaos Cultists and remove it from the battlefield. You can then set up again wholly within 6 inches of the edge of the battlefield and more than 9 inches from an enemy model at its starting strength. Cost 2 command points. I really, really like this stratagem. Probably would have liked it more in the previous edition, when I absolutely loved cultists. But anyway, I really like this stratagem, not just for the potential as effectively relocating your cultists and also replenishing them, but this can potentially steal key objectives from your opponent. Let me explain. Imagine 40 cultists which your opponent would have had to whittle down and dropped a few men, have died, and then you basically pick them up, fully refreshed, and stick them into your opponent's back line. Ideally near sort of an objective. They might be keeping a long range camping unit on, so maybe like Devastators or something that are like really, really hunkered down, and suddenly 40 cultists are right beside them. Maybe your opponent hasn't kept people back to protect them. It could be a real pain. If you're lucky, you might even be in rapid fire, so you could be potentially looking at, depending on how sort of, if you've got auto guns, you might be getting up to 40 to 80 shots as well, and then you can maybe even charge that unit and then hopefully get them off the objective and generally take that objective from your opponent. I really like it because it's a really good, psychological, oh, you've almost destroyed this. Well, no, you haven't. Here they are, suddenly here, and I'm going to start firing at you and take your objective. The only problem I see with this is cultists are rather squishy. They're going to die in droves as they do, and morale's not their best thing ever. So even if your opponent whittles them down, it might be the case that before your movement phase you might lose them to morale either way. But I can see a lot of fun for this stratagem. There is going to be a moment if you are fielding large metal cultists, if you want to, that you may want to relocate them suddenly and threaten a backline. This can be a really good stratagem to keep in your head. So before I move on to the Mark specific and Legion specific traits, that's sort of the general ones I've covered, I think will get the best use. I just wanted to bring up now one of the stratagems is the Chaos Boon Table. Now if you know me from previous editions, I absolutely hated the Chaos Boon Table. I thought it was too messy, needed simplified, and lo and behold, they had done so. But I still hate it. I'm still not a fan of it. It is, you know, one command point to basically try and up your character. They will get a random trait, which is pretty cool. You know, it could be an extra attack or something, or extra wound. I've not really gone over it. But it's so random, and there's the chance you might become a Demon Prince, there might be a chance you become a Spawn. Yeah, they did simplify it. Great. One command point. There's better things to spend your points on. I think if you want to have a lot of fun, go with the Chaos Boon Table, but not my thing. Although if you've had any good moments with it, please let me know. Like if you've had like, you know, character on one wound to become a Demon Prince, cool, love it, tell me. Endless Cacophony. Use this stratagem at the end of your shooting phase. Select a Heretic Status Slanesh infantry or biker unit. That unit can immediately shoot again. Command points cost 2. So out of the Mark specific stratagems, this is the one I liked the most. The ability to shoot twice can be devastating depending on what hard hitting unit you can have. Got Havocs loaded up on last cannons? Great, fire again. What about Chosen Flamers and Plasma? Yep, fire again. You know, basically unleash these heavy, heavy weapons or specialist weapons that are going to absolutely cripple your opponent. The main thing to think of this one, the main thing to think about is that you don't have to fire at the same unit you fired last time, so you can spread out the damage between somewhere else. And I feel that's quite important compared to, I think, the other stratagems where basically you get to fight again in the fight phase, but if you're charging you can only attack the unit that you charged. So in the shooting phase it's more efficient because you basically go, right, I've damaged that unit quite significantly, let's target another one. So for 2 command points with a unit that's, you know, an infantry unit or a bike unit that's shooting really, really heavily, this is a good warlord trait, stratagem. But it is only for Slanesh. So, although I hear Slanesh is quite good now. I've not tried them yet, but I hear they're quite good. In Midnight Clad, so this will be going on to Legion ones. In Midnight Clad, use this stratagem when a Night Lord's infantry unit is targeted by a shooting attack. For the rest of the phase, your opponent must subtract 1 from all hit rolls that target that unit. Command point cost 1. This is an awesome ability for Night Lords. The fact that you can activate this after your opponent declares a target means your opponent will have to suffer the effects no matter what, compared to if you had to declare before your opponent sort of announced it. So say if it was at the start of your opponent's shooting phase, you had to declare, you know, don't fire this unit because I don't want it to die. Your opponent could go, ah, well, I'm just going to ignore it. No, you do it after they commit. So they commit to firing at you, you go, ha, -1 to your hit. Really, really good. I think that's probably one of my favourite sort of psychological stratagems you can use just to sort of annoy your opponent. So if you're playing Night Lords, this is one I would definitely recommend as a sort of a go-to one to protect your key units. Right, Forward Operatives. Use this stratagem when you can set up an Alpha Legion infantry unit during deployment. You can set up this unit in concealment instead of placing it on the battlefield. At the beginning of the first battle round, but before the first turn begins, the unit emerges from its hiding place. Set it up anywhere on the battlefield and is more than 9 inches away from an enemy model. Command point cost 1. So although this may not go particularly well with the Alpha Legion trait, which is basically I think -1 to hit if you're more than 12 inches away firing onto an Alpha Legion unit, this is an extremely powerful stratagem just for 1 command point cost. Reason being, because this is done, and you could correct me if I'm wrong, because it's done before the first turn, this means you can then move, and then charge if need be. So this can be absolutely devastating to an enemy gunline army, where basically you can field a big load unit of core berserkers who are Alpha Legion, you know, an Alpha Legion unit of them, and basically set them up in concealment. If you've got first turn, then you move them and then you charge them. Oh my word, that will be almost a guaranteed charge and terrifying. You could do this with other weapons as well, such as meltas and plasma, and basically guarantee after you move your rapid fire range or melta range and cause some devastation there. But I feel this really does benefit an assault army, which, you know, Alpha Legion works quite well by having that sort of protection in the long game, but having, you know, a really good forward operative melee unit, if you've got first turn to suddenly appear and charge, is going to be devastating. If you don't have first turn, this may not work out as well, but I feel if you're Alpha Legion, which I feel for a lot of Chaos players, there might be some, and you want to field a really devastating melee unit, keep forward operatives, get a big unit of core berserkers or something that's scary, and just throw them at something and cause absolute mayhem. If anything, your opponent will have to stay back to try and commit to dealing with them, and that just buys you another turn of that, you know, 12-inch sort of grace period where you're still getting -1 on your Alpha Legion units. Beautiful, absolutely great stratagem. So that's the main stratagems that I think we'll see a lot of use within the game. I've covered general, one mark, and a couple of Legion ones there as well. As you know, you can let me know if there's other ones you wish, you know, me to discuss, or which ones you think are actually much better, because obviously there is 24 options. So let's go into Artifacts of Chaos. Artifacts are additional upgrade options for forces that are fortunate enough to have a codex. Everyone, I'm sure, is going to get, you know, their artifacts in time. How this works is if the army is led by a Chaos Space Marine Warlord, you may give one Artifact of Chaos to a Chaos Space Marine character. Named characters cannot have artifacts, they've already got enough shiny stuff as it is. Lastly, if the artifact says it replaces a specific weapon or item such as a power sword, you must pay the points that weapon or item it is replacing. So for Chaos, there are a few things to keep in mind. There's not many general artifacts to choose from. There's a fair amount of Mark specific ones and Legion specific ones, so you have to keep that in mind depending on the Legion that you're obviously playing and the marks you're playing on your characters. So for the general ones, I think there's only one I'm going to cover. Yep. It's going to be the Murder Sword. So beginning with one of the general artifacts, this one replaces a power sword with stats of melee, strength +1, AP -4, damage 1. At the start of the first battle round, but before the first turn has begun, you must nominate one enemy character to be the target of the bearer of the Murder Sword. It can also be one not set up on the field. You must tell your opponent which character you've nominated. Each attack made with the Murder Sword that hits the selected character automatically inflicts a mortal wound upon that character instead of normal damage. So this weapon can cause some good damage to smaller units, but it may struggle against anything with a decent invul save. You know, it has great in AP, so it'll rip through quite a few things on that one. -4 is awesome, but if you've got an invul save, it's not going to be the greatest there, because it only does 1 damage as well. However, what I love this for is the sort of psychological aspect you can get with this weapon. Tell your opponent you have chosen a character to die. Threaten them that you're coming for them. Tell them that you simply only need to hit to cause a mortal wound. In most cases with your characters, you're just going to need to hit on 2s. And if you're lucky, you might be even rerolling those 1s. And that can be a lot of reliable mortal wounds. But at the end of the day, it is only 1 mortal wound per hit compared to weapons that may grant a reliable 3 damage apiece or D6 damage apiece. You are only going to be causing 1, so yeah, you know, if you get all those 2s, yeah, you might obliterate your opponent and all good, but sometimes having that multi-damage is more reliable for you know, getting through the heavier stuff as well, because you're not going to be able to target their general troops with this. you know, unless they've only got one wound apiece and they've got no invul save. So yeah, it's quite good, but I love the psychological aspect of that. Threaten your opponent, tell them you're coming for them, you know, and hopefully try and get them to sort of steer away from your character and play about them. You know, mind games, that's what it's all about, and I feel the Murder Sword works quite well with that one. So you might see me suddenly pluck the Murder Sword on someone and try and scare one of my opponents dead. Talisman of Burning Bloods. Khorne model only. The bearer of the Talisman of Burning Bloods can advance and charge in the same turn. Furthermore, the bearer can reroll charge rolls. So very useful artifact, you know, basically, you know, more or less assuring that the turn you want to charge in, you're going to get there because you can advance, get a huge amount of movement, and then you can also reroll your charge, which is very, very helpful. However, I have covered the possibility of stranding your characters when I was discussing warp time, and you need to be very, very careful about that when you are sort of committing a character to charge and maybe move ahead of a lot of your infantry. Be very, very careful of that, because that does make them, you know, fire magnets and probably see them to death. Probably best in Demon Prince, who will draw fire no matter what, because as soon as they push forward, your opponent will probably want to see them gone. However, having the advantage of being able to then, you know, advance and reroll their charge is really, really useful, because if, for instance, you failed that charge, oh boy, that Demon Prince is going to die. So it's better that you do have that advantage of being able to plough straight in with him and just basically tear your opponents apart. So it's a good one for Khorne, just make sure your placement of Demon Princes is a lot more careful. I know from personal experience that if you don't place your characters well, they die in droves. If you've seen any of the latest ones I have been posting, not my best moments. Eye of Tzeentch, Tzeentch Psyker only. The bearer of the Eye of Tzeentch adds 1 to their psychic test when attempting to manifest the smite power. Right, this would be an auto take almost any time for any Psyker army if it was +1 to any psychic test. Unfortunately, it is just for smite, but that's not to say this artifact is not worth it. Being able to cast smite on a 4+ on 2 dice just makes it that bit more reliable, and then it goes to D6 wounds if you get 10+, which is also very, very handy. I think you need to get 11 or 12, 12 being a bit, you know, mishap on warp, you know, basically warp. But being able to get up to 10, 11 or 12 just makes you more mortal wounds, and mortal wounds are excellent, you know. So that's good, but also adds 1 to the dice amount, which means it's a harder time for your opponent to deny it. Generally in a Psyker heavy army, this is probably quite good to have. Smite's a really good ability. Whether it's maybe one of your favourite ones, I don't know, but I'm not very good with psychic tests. You know, I've sort of been banned from psychic, but I really like it though, because adding 1 to smite, always very handy. Flesh Metal Exoskeleton. Iron Warriors only. The bearer of Flesh Metal Exoskeleton has a save characteristic of 2+. In addition, this model heals 1 wound at the start of each of your turns. So this obviously favours characters that do not have access to 2-up arm saves and have plenty of wounds to recover. So who has loads of wounds and no access to a 2+ save? Demon Princes. So this just makes Demon Prince a little bit more survivable. 2+ save, excellent. You're going to be shrugging off a bunch more wounds. You're going to be recovering the wounds each turn, which is also very handy, makes them a bit more of a pain. Honestly, if you go sort of an Iron Warriors heavy army and you are taking a Demon Prince, this is almost a must-have. I know I've played Iron Warriors a few times. I enjoy them lore-wise. If I use a Demon Prince, I'm next to always keeping this one in mind. 2+ save and regenerating a wound each turn is excellent for a Demon Prince. Right, forgive me for this one because I might mispronounce it. Brass Collar of Borgahaster. Sure. World Eaters only. The bearer of the Brass Collar, not going to say next part, can attempt to deny 1 psychic power in each enemy psychic phase. If this model makes a successful deny the Witch test, the Psyker that attempts to manifest the power immediately suffers a Perils of the Warp. So I really like this artifact as it does offer some psychic defense to a legion which will lack almost any psychic defense at all, which is really weird for World Eaters because you'd expect them to have some psychic defense, but I think we might see that later on. Maybe, I'm speculating there. However, its real ability is the fact if you successfully deny the witch against your opponent, you can essentially cause them to suffer D3 mortal wounds with a chance of war to surrounding units in the instance that the caster is slain. So how would I play this? I'd be tempted to take this on occasion, not just to try and stop my opponent's psychic attempt, but when they cast something low to sort of get them to waste a command point. You know, play a bit of a psychological game on this one. You know, say to them, you've just cast that on a 5. Well, if I beat that, you know, you're going to suffer D3 mortal wounds, and there's a chance the guys around them are going to suffer wounds as well. That could be a problem, and before you know it, your opponent's going, well, that one I'm going to re-roll it. Use up a command point, or you could beat them with the Deny the Witch and cause mortal wounds as well. You know, a lot of these things I'm bringing up psychological effects you can play on your opponent. Keep that in mind, you know, that can be really, really handy. Sort of force your opponent to use command points up just to try and stop you from using an artifact. So I really like that one. I think that for World Eaters is really, really nice. So yeah, not for its main ability to add Deny the Witch, but the fact that you can actually hurt their witches back. So Warlord Traits, here we go. So again, the advantage of having Codex is the expanded Warlord Trait options than what's in the general rulebook. There are 6 general Warlord Traits to choose from, along with Legion-specific Warlord Traits as well. Interestingly, Death Guard and Thousand Suns seem to be missing from the Legion traits that are available. At this point we have the Death Guard ones because they've got their Codex. But that's a good indication of the imminent plans for Thousand Suns. I'm only speculating there, but to not give them a Warlord trait, I think, unless I missed it, seems to be sort of Games Workshop really gearing up to go, you know, they're going to get their Codex soon. Which I really hope so, because playing against Magnus was a lot of fun. So, Warlord traits. First one, Flames of Spite. If the wounds roll for a melee weapon attack made by a Warlord is 6+, inflict 1 mortal wound on the target in addition to any other damage. This is sort of my go-to Warlord trait I've had so far. If my Warlord is going to be Demon Prince anyway. Especially because you want to make sure you're taking this Warlord trait on a Warlord with lots of attacks, and a Demon Prince can achieve that with Malefic Talons, giving him 7 attacks, yep, 7 attacks in total. And when you get 6+ on wounds, it can cause mortal wounds, and the damage it causes additionally just means that there's going to be a lot of damage that a Demon Prince can put out. I mean, a heck of a lot. If you also take into account Death to the False Emperor, this becomes terrifying. I played a game recently with Demon Prince who used Flames of Spite as the Warlord trait, and I charged into an Imperial character and tore them apart before they knew what was going on. It was beautiful. Certainly if you're playing a Demon Prince, and if you're definitely playing against Imperial Force and they've got Malefic Talons, loads of attacks, yeah, Flames of Spite is really, really good for it if you want to play quite offensively. Lord of Terror, the opposing player must roll an extra dice when taking morale tests for units within 6 inches of your Warlord and use the highest result. This is interesting. It's a great debuffer ability for Night Lord themed armies where lowering their morale is key in radius using abilities and icons to get the maximum effect. Though I really like this ability because it is psychological, lowering morale is pretty cool. It will only work on opponents using heavy infantry armies, and when it comes to morale abuse in 40k at the moment, you really need to think ahead of the game on how you're going to apply these debuffs, and think of your movement very carefully because they are quite small radius abilities. Honestly, I love this Warlord trait, but you need to be very good with movement and tactical striking to get the most out of it, and I'm probably not quite there myself yet, to be brutally honest. If you can get a good turn in of using this against like key elite infantry units, like centurions or something, and bog down their morale heavily, and then you force them to reroll to take 2 dice, and they have to choose the highest. Ouch! It might be good. But if your opponent uses a bunch of conscripts and they're just using commissar to stop it, or they're going for infantry they don't really care about, it's not that great. Against sort of elite armies that don't really want to suffer casualties to morale, if you use a whole bunch of buffers, it's really cool. But you really need to be a good player and really commit sort of the morale, damaging side to get it. But I really like it though. Alpha Legion. I am Alfarius. In addition to this Warlord trait, your Warlord has 1 randomly selected Chaos Space Marine Warlord trait. If your Warlord is slain, you can immediately select another Alpha Legion character in your army to take their place and generate a Warlord trait for them, including this one. If the mission you are playing grants victory points for slaying the enemy Warlord, your opponent will only achieve the objective if all the Alpha Legion characters in your army have been slain. So by the most troll, this is probably the most troll-like ability in 40k that I've seen at the moment. You can debate with me on that one, I'm sure people can figure other ones, and I love it. One thing to note is that your first Warlord trait must be randomly selected. It says must be randomly selected from the Warlord trait. However, afterwards it's saying a Warlord generates a Warlord trait, which is, as the wording in the Chaos Codex sort of goes, it says you can generate a Warlord trait, and that allows you to either randomly select or choose. By that wording, I would say the second Warlord can actually just choose their trait, which is really handy. But generally your first Warlord can only get a random ability. So whether you want this, you're mainly taking this for the second part to sort of deny your opponent the Warlord kill, and also to pass a trait onto a secondary one, but it's sort of making your first one get an unreliable Warlord trait. So whether it's the best one for that, don't know. However, it sounds like a lot of fun and I'm a huge fan of it. So yeah, pretty cool. I'm Alfarius. If you can't tell, I'm a huge fan of the Alpha Legion and the rules so far. Night Lords, Night Haunter's Curse. Once per battle, you can reroll a single hit roll, wound roll, damage roll, advance roll, charge roll, or saving throw made for your Warlords. So let me just read that again. Once per battle round, you can reroll a single hit roll, wound roll, damage roll, advance roll, charge roll, or saving roll for your Warlord. Wow. So minus fat, this is justified and very fluff-like, Night Haunter's Curse. The Night Haunter was apparently cursed with premonitions that he could see the future and saw a lot of bad stuff, and that led him down the route of which Conrad was going through. I quite enjoy the fact that his sons, some of them, had been plagued with this as well, and they've made it a Warlord trait. In terms of the use in battle, this is generally very useful, allowing a good few rerolls, approximately maybe 5 minimum and 7 total if you play a long game, which is very, very handy. It stops you having to use command points with your Warlord to get that one-off reroll. Instead, your Warlord trait can be used on a huge variety of options for your Warlord, and generally if you're going Night Haunters, this may be quite a good one to look at, because it just generally allows your Warlord to reroll just about anything they can do. So there we have it, my reviews for Stratagems, Artifacts and Warlord traits for Chaos Space Marines. Was there any that I missed out that you felt deserved a mention? Have you had awesome moments where you've used either Stratagems, Artifacts or Warlord traits that have swung the tide of battle? Let me know. I love to read the comments section and hear about people's sort of opinions on things that I have covered, which is really, really cool. If you think maybe I should change this format, because I will be going into, I think, AdMech next. I'm going to be looking at their codex. If you prefer that I actually cover the stratagems in total, I mean that's going to be a long video on just stratagems, I can do so. But let me know if you've enjoyed this video. If there's anything you think I should change about it, I can obviously have a look at the format. But is there anything you've learned or anything you think you'd like other people to learn about? Put it in the comments section and let us know. So once again, please like, share, comment and subscribe. Check us out on social media. You can see our projects and things we are working on. See if I'm going to go back into hospital, because trust me, it happens more often than you think. But I'm also going to obviously try and make sure I'm always keeping you guys up to date and doing new videos for you regularly. So thanks again, and we'll see you on another Tabletop Assault Battle Report.